Hey everybody, I am early, and the reason why that I am early is because I'm using this streaming software and I kind of wanted to make sure that it worked. And so I'm going to let you guys funnel into the room. We will be starting promptly at 2 p.m. Um I'm trying to see if it actually it's already. Okay. We'll be starting at 2 p.m. Is because I'm using So be ready for that at 2 p.m. Right now, I'm going to put on some Christmas music and I am going to put on the Christmas Carol. So y'all can watch that movie in silence because I can't play the actual where they're talking, but I can play the music and you guys can listen to or watch it. You know what I'm saying? Y'all remember when we were younger, we used to watch cartoons and they didn't say nothing. So like, let's pretend like that's that. Right? Right. So hold on. Let me get situated. Put the music on. Remember, we are going to be starting at 2 p.m. Every now and then, I'm going to be coming back in here just to remind you to come in, drop any questions you have in the comments. We'll be talking about how to have a merry mindset for the holidays. So we know that not this season is not the best for everybody, right? And so we want to be able to give you some godly wisdom on how to navigate the holidays during this time. So I am actually going to put the chat where we can see it off to the side. And like you guys can put as many questions as you want to or not, whatever you like to do in this moment. And I'm getting ready to play the music. I want to start there. Let's make sure. We start in about 10 minutes, you guys. Yeah, 10 minutes. All right, you guys, we are about to start. Let me adjust some things and take off the movie off of the screen. I think I picked this movie because, people are probably like in a bah humbug mood, and I guess maybe I was being subliminal, but it is one of those good movies too. So let me click that off. I am here. Hey, I messed. I picked the wrong screen because you were not supposed to be on there yet. I was supposed to be me, and then I'm supposed to bring you in. So I'm sorry. I still have you muted. Hold on. Hey, can you say something now?
I can barely hear you.
You can barely hear me.
Yeah, I mean, I've got my volume turned all the way to the max and I can barely hear you.
Hmm. What about now? Can you hear me now?
Just barely. I mean, you sound very, very distant.
I wonder why.
I don't know.
Um. What about now? Is it the same?
Kind of, but not that different. It's not that much better.
Okay. Well, let me go out and I'll come back in.
Okay.
Well, wait. I don't know if I could do that. Can I do that? I don't think I can do that. I think it will shut the whole thing off. I think. Hold on.
Well, if I can't hear you, I'm not sure anyone else can.
All right. What about now?
It's about the same.
Mm, well, when I checked it earlier, I could hear myself on YouTube.
That's really weird.
I mean, I can hear you fine. Let me see. Oh yeah, you can hear it.
Pardon?
You can hear me.
I can't hear you, but
No, no, not you. But I'm saying that they can hear me on
they
here.
can hear you.
Hmm.
Interesting.
Yep.
That's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Nope. I can hear me even the whole time. Yeah. Nope. So I don't know. I don't know why you can't hear me. I'm so sorry. But you can hear me enough though, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Hey everybody. Today we have a special guest that we're going to be talking about having a merry mindset for happy holidays. We have Miss Tawana Laurie over of missovercomer.com or ministries. And so I'm going to let her introduce herself a little bit more. Sorry for the technical difficulties, and but we're actually still starting on time. So, how are you doing, lady? Can you hear me? You can hear me somewhat. Can you hear me, Tawana?
Yeah, I can hear you just
Oh,
barely.
okay. All right. Go ahead and introduce yourself.
Yeah, okay. So happy holidays, everybody. It's great to see you. Thanks for taking time to join us. So I'm Tawana Lowry, and I am a women's leadership and empowerment coach. I'm also a best-selling author and an international speaker, the executive director of Miss Overcomer Global. And so for more than 20 years, I've had the great privilege of teaching and empowering faith minded female leaders, coaches, mentors, and career women how to empower their purpose and maximize their potential so they can become key women of influence in the marketplace and in their community. And so I'm very proud of the things that we've been able to do. And I'm really looking forward to spending this time with you today. And thank you, Jamie, for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Thank you for doing what you're doing in the kingdom. And so I'm excited to hear how to have a merry mindset during the bah humbug season. And so I know that you have a presentation, right? Did you want to
Yeah, let me
share
go
your
ahead and
screen?
share. And it's just some slides that we can follow. Obviously, we're going to have a very interactive time together. So just kind of helping us walk through some things. So anyway, just welcome to this event together. And before I want to get started, I want to encourage you to please stay until the end because I have a special gift for you. And I want to make sure that you stay long enough to get that gift, and it's totally free. But before we get moving any further, I'd like for you to drop in the chat the city and state that you are calling in from or dialing in from, joining and zooming in from. And then I want to know your reindeer personality. So, for example, I say my reindeer personality is a toss up between Blitzen and Dasher. And that's because I have such a huge need for speed. And so, go ahead and just drop in the chat what your reindeer personality is. Mine would be either Blitzen or Dasher.
You said you have a need for speed. So are both of them fast? Were both of them fast?
Pardon?
Were both reindeers fast? Like,
Blitzen, well, I think they were all supposed to be fast. Otherwise, they couldn't cart the fat man in the sleigh around the world so fast.
that was me.
Although I did hear that they were actually female reindeers because apparently the male reindeers lose their antlers that time of year. So obviously the women were carting the fat man in the sleigh around the world. So,
Oh, wow. Surprise, surprise, right?
yeah, that's the rumor. Okay, so let me go ahead and continue with this. So,
Well, your it disappeared. So you stopped sharing your screen.
yep, I stopped sharing. So I'm
Okay,
going to go
okay.
back. All right. So let's move on. So, we say that this is the most wonderful time of the year, but for a lot of us and for many people out there, it's actually the most stressful time of the year. And there's, obvious reasons why, because we've got all this societal pressure about who we're supposed to be around and what we're supposed to do and all of the traditions that we're supposed to observe and the decorating and the presents and all this stuff. And sometimes it can feel like there's a lot of unrealistic expectations put on us. And then, if we're on social media or at work or whatever, then there's this temptation to start comparing ourselves to other people. And
Mm,
then obviously we feel overwhelmed, right? And
right,
that just can make a mess of the whole thing. So what we want to talk about today is how we can use our mindset to put all this in perspective and sail through these next few days and have a wonderful time together. All right, so
right.
let's talk about first what is mindset. So
Okay,
basically, it's just it's a set of beliefs that shape how we make sense of the world and ourselves. And you may have heard the phrase, "Hey, that just doesn't make any sense. It's not logical." But sometimes we say that out of what we're used to, right? And
right,
so our mindset determines how we interpret the world around us, how it makes us feel, how it influences our behavior. It influences our outlook, our expectations. And then obviously that can play into how we experience uh, the things that we are involved with, the people that we interact with, and the opportunities that come our way. Okay.
right.
So
Wait, I
there
got a
are, and I
question.
said, I'm
I
sorry,
have
go
a
ahead.
question. I have a question. Do you hear me? Can you hear
I,
me?
I'm not very hard. I can't hear
Oh,
you very
I
well.
have a question.
Yeah.
I'm gonna type it to you though.
Okay.
Okay. Go ahead. I'm gonna type it to you, and then it should pop up, and then you can answer it since you can't
Okay.
really hear me. Okay.
Let me go. Let me keep going forward. Okay, so there's two types of mindsets we're going to talk about now. There are more. Obviously, we can have our mindsets in different frames, but primarily, when you look at it from like a 50,000 foot view, you've got two mindsets. You've got a mindset that's kind of fixed thinking, and the characteristics of a fixed thought mindset are, we see ourselves as powerless or small, and we have these limited beliefs and kind of frame our outlook in this little tiny box of the way things have always been or our experiences, and we rehearse old thought patterns. Nothing good comes from that, right? And then we project our past onto our present or our future. But there's another way of thinking, which is called the dynamic type of thinking, and the characteristics of that mindset let us plan the outcome we want. And so
Mm,
rather than seeing ourselves as powerless and small and victims, when we have this dynamic thinking, we say, no, I'm gonna think through this and plan what I want it to be, how I want it to occur, and the outcome I'm looking for. In other
right.
words, we realize that we have the freedom to choose something new. And I'm going to give you some great examples of this as we move through this session today. And we also, when we're dynamic in our thinking, we're open to fresh possibilities, maybe things we've never considered before.
Right.
And I think the part I love the most is that we actually traverse through circumstances with hope and kind of a faith infused thinking model rather than this, fixed, repetitive doom and gloom type of thinking, like, there's no way out, I'm a victim, and all these kinds of things. So you
Right.
have a question?
Well, I did. Did you get it in the private chat, or do you see it? I'm gonna unplug my
Yeah, what type of person enjoys tradition?
Yeah, like what type of person enjoys sticking to tradition rather
Well, I mean,
than
I think it could be a lot of different personalities. Sometimes, though, you got to think about, why am I enjoying this? What am I getting out of it? Like, you have to ask yourself, and I'm so glad you said that because you kind of teed up the next couple of slides with this question. So thanks. I will pay you later. But sometimes you have to think about, I love the tradition, and maybe you've never thought about it like this, but does the tradition love me back? You know what I'm saying? Like, do I love this tradition or am I afraid to let it go? So rather than what kind of personality enjoys traditions, it's more about, what are you getting from the traditions?
right?
Is
Can you
it
hear me
bearing
better
good
now?
fruit? I'm sorry?
Can you hear me better now?
No, I can't hear you. I can't hear you that
Well,
much better. And let me try to turn up my volume even more. Okay, I've got it all the way to the max. Um, and so, rather than what type of personality enjoys traditions, sometimes traditions are great. They bear good fruit. I would say judge the tradition by the fruit that it bears, right?
mm,
And some people, they are encapsulated or possibly enslaved to traditions because they have an idol for the familiar.
right,
And that can actually fool with your brain, and that you can think, well, this is the way it's always been. This is what I love. But you might want to step, and I'm not saying don't have the traditions, right? I mean, the
right,
traditions can be important as long as they bear good fruit. And I think that's the key. Is
right,
your tradition bearing good fruit? And when I say good fruit, I have to refer to the way the Bible describes good fruit, as in the fruit of the Spirit: love, joy, peace, patience, gentleness, goodness, kindness, and self control. So
right,
if your traditions are bearing good fruit in your life, well, that's fabulous. But if they're not, and you're hanging on to them for the sake of a tradition or because you're afraid to let go of it or any of those other things, then I would say definitely just take a step back, pray about it, and see if God might want to have you embrace something different. Now, look, we have the feasts of the Lord that are laid out in the scriptures. And he said they are his feast forever, right?
Mhm.
But those feasts and those celebrations are meant to keep our mind fixed on God, not fixed on the temporal and the materialistic. So,
Ooh,
I
wait,
think
wait,
that,
wait. What do you mean by that? Hold on. I think you're touching on something. You said the temporal and the materialistic. So, like I've talked to a couple people and they've been like, I'm just really over it. I'm just ready for it to be over. But it's supposed to be the season of giving, right? Where we're getting gifts and we're doing stuff. But everybody I've talked to has been like, I just want it to be done.
yes, and so like December 26th is their favorite day of the year. Right? So I get it. So I think you're going to get a lot out of the 4 points that I'm about to make.
Mhm.
And sometimes what we're really asking for is somebody give me permission to do something different. Like we want somebody to give us
Mm.
permission to do something else and be okay with it.
Right. Well,
And
why?
so I think the things that I'm going to talk about in the next few slides will do that, will help you move the ball forward in that area
Right.
because life happens. And, it, so much of what we see, the songs and the movies, it's fictitious. It's just stuff that rhymes and it's supposed to make us feel good, but most of the time it doesn't make us feel very good.
Right. Right.
Because we're using these movies that are made up and people are acting, they're not even real either, and the songs were created to make somebody money, right? And so we're using these songs and these movies to compare what our life ought to be like, and their life isn't even that way.
Right, and I think that you're hurting like you're probably hurting people's feelings by saying that because is it the illusion of what we think we want or what we've been trained to think we want during the season, right? Like the
It's more
mistletoe.
training. It's more training
Mm.
because we really weren't given the choice.
Oh.
As we were brought up, we weren't given the choice.
Oh.
You don't know when you're 2, 4, 6, 10 that you can turn to your parents and say, "This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life." And, this is unrealistic. You're just going along because everybody's telling you to.
Right.
And so over time, you develop this mindset, right?
Mhm.
And it could be producing the most stressful. Like, I remember when I was a kid, I just wanted to stay home. But we
Right.
would have this amount of time to have presents, then we'd bolt in the car and go to the grandparents' house. And by the time we got home, the day was over and everybody was shot. And,
Yeah.
maybe there was a conflict with the family. Well, gosh, there goes Christmas.
Right.
And I know I'm not the only person that had that experience, right?
No, no, when I think about fixed mindset, I think about like going to the event and then your aunts and your uncles telling the same stories over and over again. And you're kind of like, okay, well, I heard that last year, but I'll tell you one that I thought was so funny. I used to have an uncle. He was short. He was a short man, right? Because I was taller than him, but I was like, I remember I was 16 at this time. I was done growing. Okay. And every time he would see me, he said, "You're getting taller." And I'll never forget. I was like, "Uncle, please stop lying. I have been the same size for the last 3 years."
Yeah.
Right. But it was just a repetitive thing to say every time he saw me at Christmas. "Oh, you're getting taller." And I was like, "No, no, I'm not."
Yeah,
So
and
he,
you don't have the maturity at that point, and you certainly don't have the permission to look at somebody like that and say, "Could you come up with something new? You've been saying that to me for the last 10 years. Is that the only thing you have to say?"
that is
Right?
that was the
Or
only
just not go. But anyway,
right.
so
He was
so
speaking.
so hopefully as we go through this, you will see a path to give yourself permission or just think about it, right? You may not be able to do it this year, but you
Right.
can start thinking about how you want to do it next year. Okay?
Right.
Fair enough? All right. So step 1 is we have to be honest. In other words, we got to get it out in the open. Like, how am I feeling right now about this holiday? What is my current mindset? Is it, I wish I could just disappear? Or, hey, I can't wait to see anybody? Or, oh my gosh, I got to, talk to my uncle one more time. Whatever it is, if you have a piece of paper, just jot down. Is it, maybe on a scale of 1 to 10? 10 is, hey, I'm just jolly and bright and happy as I can be.
Right.
And one is, I wish I could be anywhere except here. So put a number on it. Where are you on that scale? And then the other thing that you want to be thinking about, and look, being honest is like a benchmark, right? Where
Right.
are we right now? Let's be honest. There's no judgments here. We're around friends. You don't have to share it with anybody anyway. But you gotta put a stake in the ground and say, this is where I am. And is this where I want to stay, or do I want to go in a different direction? Okay,
Okay.
so then the other question you want to ask yourself is, what is stealing my peace? Is it finances? Is it family? Is it the pressure? Is it, the demands? Whatever it is, I don't feel smart enough, good enough, blah, blah, blah. I'm being beat up by my family and put on a guilt trip because, money is tight right now and we don't have the money to travel, and everyone's, making me feel like I'm garbage, or you're making yourself feel like you're garbage, or you're, all these kinds of things. What's stealing your peace? And
Mm.
then the next thing is, what seems impossible? Like, does it feel absolutely impossible to go through this holiday without maybe what you had last year or the year before? Does it feel impossible to enjoy the holiday without spending a lot of money? Or, maybe you have a loved one that you can't be with any longer. I mean, my parents died, one right before the holiday and one right after the holiday. So I get it. I understand that. So what seems impossible?
Mm.
And then the
Okay.
other thing, what are you dreading? All right. So just get it out in the open, because if we don't, we can't go further. We can't do something with it if we don't confess it. Because what we're basically saying is, I want to replace what I'm really feeling, what's really in my heart, with something better. But we have to identify it first. Okay. So that's step one. Now, step two is
Okay.
change what you want to see. Like, you can change it. You're not forced. No one's put you in a jingle bell straitjacket and wrapped you up in a present, telling you you've got to see this only one way. You don't. You're an adult. You pay your bills. You know,
You said a
you may
jingle
still have
bell
to get
straight
carded
jacket.
because you look so young in your 50s, but so what? You're an adult, right?
Right, right, right. You said
And you can change
okay.
what you see. Does that make
How
sense?
yeah, it does make sense, but I wonder how hard that is for people though, because when you go back up to your step 1 where you said what seems impossible and what do you dread, I feel like like between those two right there is usually what stops people from actually seeing what they want their holiday to look like, because they're so focused on it being impossible or disappointing family, or here are going and then hearing about things that you don't necessarily want to talk about. Like, I just want to come see you guys and I don't want you to ask me 1,000 questions when I get here, right? And
Well,
so
correct, correct. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because I want to tell you a story about how I did this.
okay,
Right?
all
So
right.
if we can have an example of someone else doing it, then we
Mhm.
can say, wait a second, if they can do it, I can do it, right?
Right.
So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second because I want to tell you the story.
Okay.
Um, all right. So in August,
Okay.
I had to go into the hospital to have open heart surgery. And I'm healthy as I can be, work out all the time, have this real strict, super boring diet. But I found out from just a regular routine checkup
Mhm.
that I had a heart problem. I'm like, what do you mean I have a heart problem? I feel great all the time. But it was genetic. It was something I had inherited. I couldn't,
Right.
no matter how healthy I lived, it didn't matter, right?
Mhm.
So August the 29th, I am in the hospital having double heart valve surgery. Like, when I have heart surgery, I make it count. Well, so when I found out this was going to happen, my
Okay.
first thought was, oh gosh, like, it first hit me like, I'm single, and
Mhm.
uh, what's my life going to be like? And I just
Mm.
visualized myself, you know, holy cow, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm going to be on meds and I take no meds. So, at first I got really upset about it and
Mhm.
very worried about it. my surgeon was fabulous. I really wasn't worried about the surgery. I was more worried about what it was going to be like after the surgery, right? And he
Mhm.
even told me, he said, "You're not even worried about the surgery that bad. You're more worried about after." And I'm like, "Yeah, kind of." And so I started praying about it because I was visualizing myself being in ICU and recovery and looking like a corpse and feeling like a corpse. I'm like, there's just, that's not my, that's just not my
Right.
groove, right? And so I started praying about it, and I had to be honest and tell God how
Mhm.
I felt about it. Like, this is what I feel. This is how it's making me feel. This is how it's making me think. I mean,
Right.
he already knew. Wasn't going to shock him. He wasn't going to like fall off of his throne and go, "Oh my gosh, like I can't believe it." And so I was super honest and told him how I felt.
Mhm.
And what's so beautiful is that he responds to me and says, "Tawana, first of all, I am the one that's going to be doing your surgery."
Right. Oh, okay. Okay.
So immediately I got a completely different vision for what was going to be happening in that operating room.
Okay. Okay.
And I saw Jesus, I saw God Himself, I saw His hands, and I thought, you know what? If your hands are doing it, I'm going to be just fine. And He
Right.
said, "No, by the way, we're all going to be there." Like, your real family is all going to be there. Father, Son, Holy Spirit, and the host of heaven. It's going to be a very crowded operating room. And I'm just
Okay.
seeing in my mind the whole place just filled with glory
Right. So
and
you got a
beauty
sense
and
of
peace.
comfort. Right.
Pardon?
I said, but you got a sense of comfort from that
Totally.
confirmation, right?
Totally. And then it went even further. So that night I had a dream. And I saw myself lying on the operating table. I know this was a God dream. I saw myself lying on the operating table, and Jesus Himself was sitting beside me, and He was kissing me on the cheek like this the entire time.
So
And I thought,
that was before the surgery, right?
before the
Okay.
surgery. And so, as you can imagine, by the time surgery day gets there, I'm pumped. Like,
Right, right.
wow, God's going to be my surgeon. He's going to kiss me on the cheek the whole time. This is going to be great. And I drove myself to the hospital by myself to have open heart surgery. And I beep bop into the surgery center, and I've got my little suitcase, and I've got my little cooler with my snacks in it, and I walk up there like, "I'm checking in the Heart Hotel. I'm here for surgery, blah, blah." That was my whole thing. Like, I'm getting on a cruise ship. And
Right.
so the lady says to me, "Well, is anyone with you?" And I started saying, "Yeah, there's a whole lot of people with me." But I was afraid to say something because they may take me to the psych ward as soon as I get out of the,
Right.
ICU, and I didn't want to do that. So I said, "No, I'm fine. I'm here by myself." And they literally were looking at me like they'd never seen anybody just walk up with a big smile, like, "Hey, I'm here for heart surgery."
Right.
And they take me back, and I'm like, "Yeah, and I've got all this great attitude." And honestly, I woke up, I had complete peace, I had no complications, no pain, no problem. You got tubes and everything, but
Right.
they could not believe how happy I was, how pain free I was. And I was literally up within 24 hours, like doing laps almost around the floor. They
Like
could
nothing
not
happened.
believe it.
Right. Right. And there's another part to that too. So while you're doing open heart surgery, what was God doing? What else was He doing for you?
Oh yes. So while I'm in the hospital recovering, thanks for
Mhm.
reminding me of that.
Yeah,
While I'm
no.
in the hospital recovering, so I had the surgery on August the 29th. August the 31st, a book that I had co-authored made the Amazon International Bestsellers list. So while I'm recovering, I became an international bestseller. So look,
Right.
you can call it whatever you want to call it. You can choose what it's going to be. So let me share screen again,
Okay.
and that we can wrap this up with the lessons that I learned from this. So here's the lessons that I learned from my new heart. First of all, we planned the end from the beginning, right? I
Right.
determined how it was going to end before it started.
Okay.
And that's so important. You got to see, this is how this is going to happen, and this is how I'm going to walk into it and walk through it.
Right.
You have to see God bigger than the challenge.
Okay.
And you're
Explain.
called, we are called to be the
Okay.
exception, not the rule. I was the exception in that
Right.
situation. And that's
So.
what we're called to be. Case in point,
Mhm.
Daniel in the lion's den was an exception, was he not?
Yeah. Oh, definitely.
3 Hebrew children in the fiery furnace, they were the exception,
Oh, yeah. Of
right?
course.
We
Right.
are called to be the exception. Now, I'm not saying your holiday's got to feel like a lion's den, but sometimes it does. Let's just be
Yeah,
honest.
depending on what your family's like, you know what I'm saying?
You can still walk out of there with your head on, right? So, so we have to see God bigger than the challenge, and we're called to be the exception. And look, we have to give God our worry. We have to give it to Him, because worrying about your worry is just going to make you, neurotic. And by the
Mhm.
time you get there, you're going to manifest all the things you're worried about, and you don't want that to happen, right? That's the whole thing about mindset. You got to show up victorious. That's what I did with the heart surgery. I walked in there already a victor, and I left with joy.
Right.
The day I
Right.
checked out, I was in full makeup, and my friend picked me up and said, "Are you sure you just had heart surgery? Like, you look like you just left the spa."
And
And
that's
but I had determined, I had
right.
made up my mind what it was going to be, and that's
So,
exactly what I got.
so
And you
technically,
can do the same thing. You
right.
can do the exact same thing that I did.
Right. So you kind of like cast down every evil imagination that exalted itself above the knowledge of Christ, right? Like you begin to have thoughts, but then you begin to cast those thoughts down to Christ. Like you were honest about them,
That's
but
right.
you did not own them. You didn't keep those thoughts.
Well, I was owning them, but I took them to the cross.
Okay.
I put them in Jesus's hand the same way that they did the loaves and fishes. Like, I've got
Okay.
to feed these 5,000. This is all I've got, and I can't do it, but I put it in your hands. And then they had more, they had abundance, right?
Right.
And so we really can go into these things, but we have to be honest and tell God what it is, give it to Him, and then start making our plan to show up victorious and leave with joy. Make sense?
Yeah.
Okay, so let's go to step 2. And step 2 is and the bonus lesson is ask for kisses from heaven, because that's what I got. Of all the presents you get this holiday,
Hmm.
kisses from heaven would be the best of all, would it not?
I think they would last longer. Yes, they would be.
And no one can take it away, and it always fits. It's always the right color. It's always perfect, right?
Right.
Matches your wardrobe no matter what it is. Okay, so the second step is we want to embrace something new. Think about embracing something new. Now, why do I have a picture of a cruise ship, or the railing of a cruise ship? Okay, here's why. I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second and tell
Okay.
you another story. All right. So, a couple of months, this was several years ago, a couple of months before Christmas, my second marriage of more than 25 years was going overboard. No pun intended with the cruise ship, but it was basically going over the side, and it wasn't coming back on board. There was like no
Not
life
at all.
preserver to rescue
No.
anything
Okay.
was going on, right? And so, so that's in October, and I it was hard. Look, it was my second
Mhm.
marriage, and it was done. It was like over.
Right.
So it was unraveling, and we went through Thanksgiving because I didn't say anything, and the other party didn't want to say anything, but yet it was so hard. So we
Hmm.
tried to pretend like everything was fine, everything was normal. We went through Thanksgiving, and it was so painful.
Really.
And I
Okay.
realized after that, I'm like, there's no way I can do Christmas and act like everything's hunky dory and just for the sake of everybody else's feelings. I can't do it.
Right.
So I
So.
started praying about it,
Okay.
and I was just saying, God, I this is just a bridge too far. And the Lord knew the circumstances around everything. And so He just says to me, what would you like to do? I'm thinking,
Mm.
that's interesting. That's really interesting. And I said, honestly, what I would like to do, I would like to go on a cruise.
Ooh.
I would like to go on a cruise for Christmas. And He's like, all right, book it. So I start looking for a cruise to go on for Christmas. I had never been on a cruise in my life,
Okay.
but I felt like I have just got to get away. I've got to separate
Right.
myself from all of this drama. I'd never done that in my life. I'd always had holidays with the tradition and the family and the church and everything all my life up to that
Right.
point. And so I booked the cruise. It was a 10-day cruise to the Panama Canal. I crossed the equator on this thing. And so I left, and there's a spiritual lesson in that. So I left on the 18th of December. I just sent gift cards to everybody. And I left on the 18th of December, got on a cruise ship, came back on the 28th. Now, look, it was so different that I had some anxiety. The first couple of days, I had some anxiety. I was alone. I was by myself, but I wasn't alone because you're with a couple thousand people, right? But
Right.
I had some anxiety because it was so different, but yet I knew it was what I was supposed to do.
Right. So when
And
you
so,
say you got like you had anxiety, what exactly did what would you describe that as? Like,
yeah, so it was a huge trip alone, right?
mhm.
And so you're second guessing,
Mm,
should I have done this? Should I have tried to make it work? So you're, the shoulda, coulda, wouldas hit. And then of course, just the hurt and the pain of I wish it could have been different. I wish that my spouse and I could be enjoying this together.
yeah.
And so that kind of gave me some anxiety, but I prayed through it.
Mhm.
And I kept going forward. There were actually a couple of ports of call where you can get on a plane and fly home if you want to. And the
Gotcha.
thought did cross my mind, but I stayed the course. And
Mm.
every day it got better. And I literally would just check off, okay, day 2, day 3, day 4. And every day that I put a check mark by it, it would become more and more fun, more and more enjoyable, and more peaceful.
Right.
I got to tell you, it was the best Christmas I ever had. The very
Really?
best I ever had. And I made so many friends. I had so many great experiences. And I'm not saying to jump on a cruise ship for Christmas. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying if possibly God wants you to consider doing something different, be open to it, right?
Right.
So here are my lessons
No.
from the cruise
Wait,
ship.
wait, wait. Don't go. Don't go. Don't hold on. Okay, there we go.
Okay. So here are my lessons from the Christmas cruise. That picture right there is Christmas Eve in Jamaica. And one of my dreams was to swim with dolphins. Well, I got kissed by a dolphin. So with the heart surgery, I got kisses from heaven. With the Christmas cruise, I got kisses from a dolphin. So if you're seeing a theme here, right? When
Right.
we step out and step forward, good things can happen for us. So here's what I learned, that change requires changing.
Explain that. Okay, all right. So change requires changing.
Right. So
If
if
some
you want something to be different, you've got to do something different.
no matter how hard it is, right? Like no matter like
You
how
can't just sit there and, oh, I wish things were different. Well, wishing doesn't make it different. Action makes it different.
mm,
And
mm,
so change requires changing. I had to make a change. The other thing is be willing to break the mold. The world isn't going to come to an end if one of the traditions that you've been taught to, value or worship, whichever you want to say, if you don't do it,
mm.
you know, you got to
I'm
think about
but you
you
think
got to think about the hundreds of years that people lived and never celebrated Christmas. They didn't. I mean, okay.
I mean, I understand what you're saying. I fully understand. Fully agree with you. Uh but the pressure, right? The pressure to say when somebody says, "What did you do for Christmas?" to have something that you did, whether you enjoyed it or not.
Well, now you have to pray about that. I feel pressure to say a certain thing. Why? Why do
Mm.
you feel pressure to say a certain thing? Because if I don't, they're going to think I'm crazy. Or if they don't, I'm going to be rejected. So we go back to that first one. What's stealing your peace?
Ooh, yeah. Yeah, and I
Right?
think it sounds like a lot of people are people pleasers then, right? Like we're doing the tradition to people please then, right?
Right. And, we're not saying just be disruptive for the sake of being disruptive. But
Right.
if what you are being called and asked to do is stealing your peace, you have to pray about it.
Mm,
Because the goal is to get to peace. That's the first goal. But I have to confess where my peace is being stolen. I have to talk to God about it. And when I do, I discover the conditions I've put on my peace. That peace is conditional
mm,
based on, person, place, thing, outcome, whatever, rather than peace as a free gift from the person who is the Prince of Peace, right? So,
right.
so that can expose maybe where we have idols in our heart, where peace
Yeah.
is supposed to come from.
Mm-hmm.
But once we can exchange the idol for peace for the Prince of Peace, well, now we really have peace that is
Right.
not of this world, that can't be shaken. Now, what's the byproduct of that? The byproduct of peace is wisdom.
Mm,
And because we don't have these screaming squirrels in our head trying to help us save our own neck and conjure up our own peace, right? Now we have actually peace. And when we do that, our minds can relax and we can hear the voice of wisdom speaking to us. And the voice of wisdom may say, go ahead and have dinner with your family, but
right.
you'll go into it from a position of total peace and confidence and faith
Right. Not
rather than
anxiety.
dread and worry and manipulation and trying to save your own neck and posturing, and if they say this, I'm going to say that, and if they do this, I'm going to do that. That's exhausting.
Ready for the fight. Like,
Oh, they pull this out. Okay, okay, got it. Like it's exhausting. Rather than, you know what, God, I'm just going to show up because your peace is around me
right.
and you'll take care of the things that concern me. And maybe that uncle that says that all day long will just go take a nap and never say anything. And I don't have to even engage this person.
Right. Yeah, that didn't happen. I did tell him that he always says that, and I think that was the last time he said that. And he was like, "Uncle, I'm not getting any taller, sir. Like I have not moved. My height is I'm stuck here. This is where I'm at."
Right, 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 right. So the other thing that I took away from the Christmas cruise is that transformation is a process. Like every day I was on that cruise, I was
Okay.
being transformed. It didn't happen all at once, but I had to be willing to stay with the process of transformation and be uncomfortable. But I can tell you one thing, when I got back home, I was a different person. I
Really,
was
just in
stronger,
10 days.
happier. I was different, but I went through the transformation process.
Mhm.
I was willing to be uncomfortable.
Yeah.
And the other thing is, we can be the ripple effect. Okay. So, what do I mean by that? Every
Okay.
time I share this story, and even after I got back from the cruise and I shared that story, you would not believe how many women went, oh my gosh, I think I can do that. All they
Mhm.
have to see is one person
It's
that
true.
you did it. If you did it, I'm going to pray about it because that's something I want to do. Well, then go do it. Like,
Right.
like we can be the example, right?
I
Okay.
agree. I know. I fully agree. I just think that when you say like the transformation process, I just keep on looking at like, okay, 10 days, right? And it says it's like 21 days to break a habit, but you had to even start the process before you got home. So I'm sure that you continued and then you begin to put your foot down around like all over the place. And everybody's like, who is this person? She went on a cruise. She didn't come and enjoy Christmas. And now she's crazy and she keeps telling us no. And we don't know what she's talking about.
Well, here's the other thing that happened while I was on that cruise. I had been writing a book, and the
Okay.
marriage thing, interrupted it. But I took my manuscript with me, and I was able to finish doing the edits on my first book.
Wow. Okay. So
So,
you're able to really just focus.
yeah. So what's interesting is I was editing my first book on the Christmas cruise on the heart surgery. My other book made a bestseller list. So you
Right.
see, there's payoff, divine payoff when we're willing to go forward with something different. Okay. So
Mm,
let
okay.
me let me wrap this up here with the next 2 points real fast.
Okay.
And all right. So step number 3. Are you ready for this?
Okay.
Oh, that was step 3. So step number 4 is this: think higher than the hype. And what do I
Wait.
mean by that? It's
Yeah.
one day. It's only one day. Although we spend 3 months planning for it, it's just ridiculous. It's one day. It's not the whole year.
Right.
And so we need to keep it in perspective and think higher than the hype that really is trying to absolutely, um, I want to say, take our minds and emotions captive,
Mm.
right? It's so designed almost to enslave our thinking, our emotions, and everything for one day. And so for sometimes it's just a half a day. It's ridiculous. We got to have
Right.
the house decorated perfect, the
Yeah.
presents, all this stuff, right? For one day, really?
Yeah. I agree. My nieces and nephew came over and they said, "TT, you don't have nothing up." And I said, I don't, I don't do it. And they were like, "What?" And I was like, "Well, they were like, you come to grandma's house," and I was like, "Because I want to see you guys be happy, but I'm not there because I actually do it." I was like, it's they were like so confused. They were like, "Oh, but it's Jesus' birthday." And I said, well, if you believe that right now, that's okay. But that's not actually accurate. That was our
Don't bore
conversation.
me
Like,
with the facts. Just let me do the
yeah,
tradition.
I was like, I don't want to hurt their feelings right now. They just wanted to know, why don't you have decorations up? And I was like,
Yeah.
it's just not my thing.
Yep,
So
yep. I mean, and you got to be willing to be called Scrooge and so forth and so on, but it's okay. I'm okay with it. So here's the other thing that you can do: focus on your goals. Like, okay, this is one day, but I'm not going to, let this take me off my goals, like my financial goals, my relationship goals, my personal, growth goals for this one day. That's crazy.
right,
I've got to keep it in perspective. The other thing you need to think about is when you're thinking higher than the hype, pay yourself forward. Like when I approach the holidays now, both Christmas and Thanksgiving,
hmm
I now automatically think about what what new goal can I accomplish, or what project can I either begin or complete, or how can I move my goals forward in a huge way while the rest of the world is distracted. I can go forward. That way I can launch something amazing, or I can have something finished that's amazing. Like, for instance, when I was in college, I spent the holidays studying for my exams. And
okay,
a couple of years ago, I spent the holidays launching a new training program. And last holiday, I did the same thing. This holiday, I'll be putting together a new webinar that I want to launch in January. So
okay,
I take that time to say, I want to think higher than the hype and beyond one day.
right,
Now, you know, for some of us, we have to, or we feel like we want to be around family because we love them and we want to be there. However, you can time box it. You can set what I call beautiful boundaries, right?
okay,
And what that means is, okay, we're going to do this on these certain amount of hours, and that's it. We're going to see these folks between these hours, and that's all. And
right.
that way, everything doesn't bleed into all the rest of your life, so that by the time it's over, you're so exhausted, you've had no enjoyment, no rest, no relaxation. And now you have to go back to work or get back in your regular routine.
And now you
So
have
just
added,
realize that the boundaries you set is you're paying yourself forward, you're thinking higher than the hype, you're thinking beyond one day, right? And then
right,
the other thing we want to make sure that we're doing is we want to make sure that we are unwrapping gratitude, right? So
right,
whatever's going on, we can always unwrap gratitude. If
hmm
if the kids are losing their mind and the Christmas tree falls over because of the cat, what can we be thankful for? Well, we can be thankful for that we have a Christmas tree and then we just pick it back up. Okay, the branch is broke, but no big deal. The house isn't burning down. And
right,
when you think about it in perspective, we do have a lot to be thankful for.
right. Right, because
I always go down the list: money in the bank, food in the cupboard, gas in the tank, car in the garage, roof over my head, electricity. I mean, two hands, 2 feet, 2 eyes, 2 ears, right? We can just go down the list. So we got this.
right.
I have kind friends. On December 26th, I still have a life. So you can find something to be grateful for.
That's, I mean, I think that's kind of hard for people. Like, because I remember growing up, and like older, when you get older, the older people would say, "You have food on the table, you have blah blah," and we're like, we don't care about that. I'm just saying, like, I'm just thinking, I think about the age range, because I just remember not being grateful for those things until they were coming out of my pocket. And,
Right.
you know, like, it's the last little bit of money to keep those things on. And so I was realizing, or while you were talking, I was thinking about how it's hard for people to understand what gratitude really is, like how to cultivate being grateful.
It's so important because when you are grateful and you start going through this and consciously, you can feel the anxiety start to melt off of you.
Right,
And
right.
that's the goal. And you look, regardless of where any of us are right now, wherever we live, we've got it better than 95% of the rest of the world.
That's true.
We really do. We are abundantly blessed and wealthy compared to 95% of the world,
Yeah, yeah.
right?
I mean,
We're doing really good. Okay, so before we wrap up, because I've got some great takeaways for you, I
okay,
want to I want you to imagine the perfect day, right? And then we're going to map it out. So when you think about having that perfect day, how does it make you feel? Like, how would that perfect day make you feel? But I also want you to take a note on what is holding you back from maybe having that perfect day. And it could be that maybe it's just you haven't planned early enough. That's okay. You can
okay,
plan it for next year. And the other thing is, what do you need to believe in order to have the perfect day? Like, do you need to believe that God is okay with you, with it, that He loves you, that, if you confess how you feel, it's not going to, knock Him off the throne? Or can you believe that His grace and love is greater than other people's disdain or their disapproval? So, what is it that you need to believe? Okay, so before we map it out, I want to go ahead
okay,
and tell you about the gift I have for you. Remember, I told you in the beginning I have a free gift. So I am offering right now free strategy calls. So if you feel like you really need to do some mindset work for the next year for 2025, I'm offering a free strategy call to anyone who just goes to missovercomer.com/coaching, and you can book time on my calendar. Maybe you're a coach or a leader or a career woman out there, and you want to map out your ideal year and you just need a little bit of help. This is valued at $200, but I want to give you a gift. See, you get gifted. You're gifted for showing up, and you're gifted no matter what. But anyway, also just to let you know, I'm available to speak at keynotes and workshops or be on your podcast, whatever. And you can let me know your needs on that by going to Tawana at tawanalowry.org. And then, of course, if you would like to, please follow us on our socials at Miss Overcomer Global for Facebook and Instagram. But please take advantage of this free strategy call. It is valued at $200. And that way you can go ahead right now and begin your beautiful mindset and all of your strategies for your goals in 2025. Okay, so let's wrap this up and let's unwrap the perfect day. So as you think about having that perfect day, what can you do right now to prepare? And maybe it's one of the step one, just being honest about how you feel about it.
about like the day.
The perfect day. What can you do right now to prepare for a perfect day over the holidays? Whatever that day, it could be the 24th, 25th, whatever that day, that big day
Yeah,
is, what can you do right now to start preparing for it to be different?
clean my house.
Clean the house. Okay. So get out a piece of paper because there's something you can do right now to start preparing. Maybe it's just pray about it. Maybe it's have a conversation and say, you know what? Here are all the things we have on the list. we need to take 3 things off. As a family, let's decide what are the 3 things we're taking off this list that are really just not that important. And
Okay.
that way you can build in some breathing room and some place to just rest and relax and have a little bit more peace and enjoyment. And then you want to think about, how am I going to show up? Am I going to show up stressed and full of dread and impatient and worry and wondering if I'm going to be judged or trying to be perfect and trying to be accepted? Or am I going to show up with peace and wisdom and assurance that the day is just going to unfold in my favor? Like this day is going to go in my favor, just like I said it was going to go when I had the heart surgery.
Right. So
I
you're
made
saying,
a decision how I was going to show up.
right. So what we're talking about is like the perfect day if we were going to a family's house, right? Or are we talking about the perfect day no matter what we choose to do?
No matter what you choose to do.
Oh, okay, okay. All right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Now, for some of you, it could be that you have to spend a weekend somewhere or 2 or 3, 4 days. Okay, so maybe in that 3 or 4 day period, you can plan something different. What
Okay.
would that day look like? Where you're
Interesting.
not, running around and racing around, or maybe it's a half a day.
Mm.
Anyway, so what you
Okay.
want to do is just think about, what would that perfect day look like, or that perfect afternoon, or that perfect, week, whatever it might be, right?
Mm-hmm.
And what can I do right now? Mostly it's in your mind. It's mostly in your mind and emotions,
Okay. No,
right?
I agree.
Because we have peace that cannot be explained. Peace
Right.
that transcends understanding. Like, we can walk through the waters, we can walk through the fire and the flood and not be moved. So, what do you need to do now? How are you going to show up? See yourself, just like, you got to visualize it, how you're going to show up. I visualized how I was going to show up at that hospital.
Right.
That's exactly how I showed up.
So you show when you say show up, it's more of like the emotion that you're going to take with you, right?
Right.
Not right. So are you taking joy with you? Are you taking gratitude with you? What are you taking with you?
That's right. It's not about what are you going to wear and all this kind. It's more about, how are you inside, in your heart and your emotions and your mind and in your expectations.
Okay.
How are you going to show up?
Okay. Okay. All right.
All right. Here's the other thing. What is a limiting belief right now that you can throw away?
Mm,
What is one limiting belief that you can throw away before the holiday?
okay.
Because it hasn't helped you up to this moment. So why would you carry it another moment?
Okay. All right.
I mean, that is not a gift that's going to keep giving. That's a gift that's going to keep stealing, right? It could be giving. It could be giving you heartburn and headache and
Yeah.
sleepless nights, but you don't want that. And I'm telling
Right.
you, if you will throw that limiting belief away, it will serve you throughout the rest of the next year.
Yeah.
All right. So what
Yeah.
is one limiting belief you can throw away? The next one is, how can you embrace something new?
Okay.
Just pray about it. Think through this. Like,
Yeah.
I embraced a cruise. I'm not saying go on a cruise, but that was pretty different.
Yeah. They're definitely different.
And I had to
Definitely.
get past not caring what other people thought about it. Like, I really got past it.
How
I,
many days did it take you though to get past it?
like the day after I booked it,
Okay.
but I took action. Like, once I took action and I visualized what I wanted
Right.
and I had peace about it, and I trusted God with the outcome.
I got you. That
And of
makes sense.
course, people were taken back. They were like, okay, like, my dad almost lost his mind. He couldn't believe, like, no one could believe I left my family on Christmas Day and got on a cruise ship. But my son was grown, and like I said, the marriage was over the side already. And so this was what I needed to do. And
Right.
yeah, but I was okay with it. And
You
it did nothing but bear good fruit in my life.
right.
Now, again,
Yeah.
I'm not saying leave your family and get on a cruise ship, but I am saying, think about something that you can embrace that's
You
new.
gotta keep
You
saying that
just
because they're
don't
gonna say
know.
Miss Tawana told me to leave. And so because I listened to the live and she said I need to get on a cruise ship, I'm not coming to Christmas this year.
Say again. I'm sorry, I didn't hear
I,
you.
I said they're gonna blame you if you keep on giving the disclaimer, like I'm not telling you to get on the cruise ship, but somebody would
Right,
use
right.
you
I'm
as
not
an
telling you
excuse.
leave your kids and your spouse
Yeah,
and get on the cruise ship. So Tawana said it was okay. No, I'm not saying that at all. Officially, I am not saying that. I'm simply saying talk to God about the possibility that He might want you to embrace
right,
something different.
right. And you know what's so
Because
funny is people will
back to
use
the
you as an
very first
excuse.
question,
Yeah,
what kind of person enjoys traditions? Typically, it's the traditions that keep us enslaved from
hmm
embracing something different,
right, right.
right?
I
So
agree.
you
I
got
just
to
think
say, is this thing producing any good fruit?
it's interesting you ask that is because people are not able to identify whether it does or not. Like because they have been programmed to think that
Right.
going to see your family is the fruit of it and you should just be happy, right? They like comparing it to the fruits of the spirit. They're like, what are you talking about? If you have to think about how you're going to respond to your auntie before you get there, you probably shouldn't go. Like if you know that she's going to say something that's going to trigger you and there's going to be an argument, which which happens, right? You probably need to assess if that's where you want to be for the holidays. So I mean I agree with you. I just think it's funny because people are going to use this. They're going to be like, I watched this live and they told me I need to try something new. She told me I need to try something new. They're not going to take they're still it would be easier to blame the person that gave the ideal than to actually say I want to try it, you know.
Yeah. Well, I'll give you an example. So one of the things I do now that I'm single on Christmas morning, I like to go to a pancake house
Ooh,
and have breakfast. And I'm there by my I go alone, but there are a lot of people there,
yeah.
right? And the
Mhm.
reason I do it is because I want to bless the wait staff
Yeah.
with a
Yeah.
very large tip. And I had an
Okay.
opportunity to do this a few years ago. I'll stop sharing and tell this the story real quick.
Okay.
I went to the Waffle House for those of you in the South who know what that is, right? It's
Mhm.
like there's only one day of the year I would do this, but I'm not doing it for myself. I'm doing it for the people who are working,
Right.
right? They have to do this. Otherwise, they'd be somewhere else.
Right.
And so this one lady, she was there. She was a single mom, and her little 8-year-old girl was her little girl was with her, and her little girl was sitting over in a chair by the window and reading a book. Now she had to get up so early to come and work that she couldn't have Christmas. And
Right.
I felt like, oh my gosh. So I left and I found a store that was open, and I just bought presents for the mom,
Oh wow.
presents for the little girl, and I walked in there and gave a gift bag to the mother. She just broke down crying. I gave a gift bag to the little girl, and she was just so joyful because she hadn't had Christmas. And so that's something different, right? That's something we can do that's different. Okay. I'm not sure what's going on, but something is freezing up on the video. So let me go ahead and share again. All right, I'll finish this up. Okay, so anyways, think higher than the hype as well. Now, I want to just say a quick prayer for everyone that you have a happy holiday, and text us and let us know if this has been a blessing to you, and how you've learned something from this. And anyway, so I just want to say a quick prayer for everyone. So Lord, I just lift up all these wonderful people on this call. And God, I just ask that you would, your peace and love and tender mercies would surround them and overtake them and cover them. And Lord, of all the gifts that they can receive during the holiday season, may they receive the gift of your perfect peace, your perfect love, and kisses from heaven. In the name of Jesus, amen. God bless you. It was great to spend time with you.
All right, you guys, I am super duper sorry. My internet went completely out, but I hope that you enjoyed that part of the live. She closed out with a prayer. Phenomenal. Her information is in the just not description, but it is in the comments, and I will put it in the description as soon as I get done with this. Hopefully this part actually records, but I'm not quite sure if it is. Super sorry, y'all. I don't know what happened. It's just like the internet stopped. And so with that, anyways, I appreciate your time. I hope that you guys have a happy holidays. You have a absolutely amazing day. Yeah, see, I'm okay. I'm back on. All right, you guys. So drop in the comments if you have any question for Miss Tawana Laurie and reach out to her. Again, her information will be in the description as well as in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. Goodbye.